working to make it a little even more functional. What we're dealing with today is removing large woody plants, specifically in this case some Wisteria. Now I know a lot of people like Wisteria because it's a beautiful plant, but it does have two downsides here on the farm. One, it is high maintenance. It's very invasive. We do a quick scan here, you'll see an incredible amount of growth. Pretty much everything you see except the trunks are growth just from this year. We had vines growing all over this whole area. This was the plant that actually covered this picnic table area, and it was all growing down. Last fall I had trimmed everything back and it came back again. So it's just a lot of maintenance. Another issue is with our honeybees. Wisteria is poisonous to honeybees, livestock, and the honey they make it out of it is also not good. So it's something we got to go ahead and remove, and which like I said, I hated to do because it is beautiful, but we got to think about the functionality. So we've already cleared off the top here, and we're going to go ahead and put some metal sheeting on top, so we'll still have the shade and weather protection. But this is what's left of the trunk. So we're going to go ahead and take this down, and then we'll show how to keep it from coming back. Looks like we're going to do a video on resetting the chain. That came totally off. Yes, this is not my first time, but I haven't done it a whole lot, so it may take a minute to do. But for the most part, it's setting it back. And yeah, you can't comment about me working with the power there. It is definitely something that has to be disconnected. So the other chainsaw, it popped the chain, and we tried putting it back on, but it turns out it might be something a little more systemic. Reminder why the old saying, one is none, two is one. It's always good to have a backup tool on the property. Fortunately, in this case, it's a power tool, but we also have hand saws just in case, so we can go ahead and get this one little part done. So we'll go ahead and get this part done here, so we can move on with this project. All right, so that is off. Now changing tools. Nice little piece of art right there. It's almost a shame cutting that down. Felt like it was destroying a little art, but got to keep the farm functioning. Anyways, next thing before you put the brush killer on, what you want to do is get as much surface exposure as possible. You could take an axe and chop this up, but another technique is to actually drill down into the root so it gives a place for the brush killer to sit. Got to get this one over here because this is now a separate plant. Actually, these probably join underground, but we want to make sure we get all of them. Oops, that went right through, but it'll be all right. Should do it. Good, immediately cut the power on anything you're done with. Now here's the brush killer, which I'll put at the end of the video how I made this. And you just pour it over it, get as much exposure as you can. And as I'm looking at this, I should have made quite a bit more, and I'm going to make more and come back off camera and pour extra on. But this will get the idea that what you really want to do is completely cover it. You don't need to put it on thick necessarily, that's just where it got thick. But the more exposure it has, the better. Important caution, when you're using any kind of brush killer, natural or synthetic, always consider whatever it comes in contact with, it will kill. If it's something big like a tree, it may just damage it, but it will damage whatever it hits. So here's the formula for the brush killer that we make at home here. Again, these are all things that are probably already in your kitchen. So I'm just gonna mix it in this container. Why am I using plastic? Plastic, of course, is not the best container, but this is just going in and going right out, so it's not anything that's gonna be sitting in there a while to have any chemical effect of storing in plastic. So we just start with regular table salt. And just as make a point, I did actually mark out the brand, only not because they didn't pay me or anything, but simply because it doesn't matter what salt. You want to use cheap salt. Don't use your good Himalayan salt. Not that you could, but don't waste the money. So and you bakers are going to love this because I'm not measuring, because the exact measurement really doesn't seem to matter. I have researched this a lot, and every source I find actually gives a different mix as far as proportions. Some have a lot of vinegar, some have a lot of salt, some have a lot of water. But yeah, again, this is just plain white vinegar. Also, like I said, marked it out just to make a point that it doesn't matter. Use the cheap stuff. You can use the fancy stuff, but it doesn't matter. So save your money. And like I said, you bakers are going to love this, that I am not measuring, because I've seen so many different measurements, and nature is actually very forgiving in a lot of things like this. If you do need to measure, go about half and half. You want to have a liquid, not quite pasty, but kind of a liquid running. But I mean, I've seen anywhere where you may have 5 times as much vinegar, twice as much salt. The thing is, you want it runny, and you add just a little bit of the detergent. I'll go ahead and put a suggested mix on the comments if you want something to go by. Feel free to add in the comments too. If you've had great experience with a particular mix, go for it, because it will work in a lot of different proportions. And that is about all there is to it. I just had a couple things sitting here, because a little baking soda, crumbled up baking soda, because that is something that sometimes people will suggest adding, but I would warn you against that. You're going to neutralize the vinegar, and the vinegar, the acid in the vinegar, is some of the main point of what you're trying to do here, to burn the roots. And if you neutralize it, it's not going to burn it. What some people will do this for is if they're putting it down into a septic tank, then it causes a lot of foaming, and that helps get at the roots in the septic tank and carry the salt and what remains of the acid to those roots. But unless you're doing it in a septic, from my understanding, you don't want to add any baking soda, because that will only weaken the formula. Here's one other example here. I was talking about the apple cider vinegar. If you want to use that, it costs like, I don't know, 10 times as much as this. Save that for your gnats. This is a little homemade gnat trap, which I'll demo real quick while we're on a little side note there. It's basically just shrink wrap, plastic wrap, put over a bowl with apple cider vinegar in it. We've got a couple gnats in there. That is a time to use the good apple cider vinegar, because I found the higher quality of the vinegar, the more it attracts the gnats. I actually did another video that demonstrates 2 different types of vinegar that I used, and you can watch that at another time, and you can actually see the huge difference that
just the brand will make in attracting the gnats. It's like nature knows the difference. Either one will work, but one works a whole lot better. Anyway, so there's our mix. Said all you need, any vinegar, any salt. Actually, not any salt. Sometimes people will suggest using Epsom salts. You do not want to use Epsom salts if you're trying to kill a plant. Epsom salts actually nourish it, so you will make it harder to kill if you use Epsom salts. Use the cheap stuff and go with that. And any detergent, you'll notice this is a detergent that doesn't have any dyes in it. You can use pretty much any detergent, but you want to use something that's going to be safe in nature. All right, there we. I forgot. Part of the reason I was showing the baking soda is it's also an excellent natural treatment for bee stings. We were out working with the bees yesterday. Actually, a group of us were out there, and 2 people got stung. But we took this. All you have to do is take baking soda. Again, you're gonna love that there's no formula here, but we just take that. Stay right there. I'm literally actually going to grab something that's not even good for measuring. One of these little lids, because it was just sitting on the counter over there. Put a tiny bit of water in, and that. You just want to make a little bit of paste, and that's actually even a little thinner than ideal, but it will work because you want it the thicker the better, as long as you can do that. And then if you had a bee sting right here, you just spread it right on there and let it.
So here was another one that we removed. It was growing up as a large bush. You can see the root structure, pretty well developed. Just trying to get this all over all of it. Again, have to be real careful to not get it on some of the neighboring plants that we want to preserve. Chances are really good that this could actually do a little bit of damage to the roots of these trees, but of course they're big enough. It's not likely to. But you can see part of the reason why we had to remove them. If you look up, all these vines twisted around, that was just a season or 2 of growth. It was choking out these trees, or would be soon. The trees still seem pretty healthy, but all that, if it had been left on there, would eventually kill them. It goes all the way up, very thick. Of course, that's all going to die off now that we've cut it. Some other ideas are you can also use boiling water, but with the persistence of Wisteria, I didn't want to take the chance that that would just hit the main part and then miss roots further out that would grow back. All right, so go ahead and let us know. Tell me in the comments other things that you would use, especially natural options that would make good brush killer. If you have any ideas, welcome input on proportions too. I know a lot of what you see there, that's the salt, and the vinegar kind of ran down a little bit into it, but it's a mix of both. So hopefully between the 2 of them, it should dry up and beat this back, and we'll keep an eye on it and see where it goes from here, if it just dies back or if we need to do any more treatment in the future. And I want to thank you all for watching and joining us, and for your input too in the comments. Thank you. By the way, one other important note, here's all the brush cut back. Do not compost or feed it to any livestock. As it is poisonous, you don't want to feed it to the livestock, and you do not want to compost it or just throw it off in the woods. The best thing to do to a lot of these vines is to burn them. That's the only way to ensure that they won't just take root somewhere else. I mean, even some of these vines I pulled up, they had started going into the ground and taking root along the vine. So just make sure they need to be destroyed completely. Otherwise, you'll just end up having to deal with it all over again in a different spot. Again, thanks. Appreciate it. Be sure to like and subscribe, and follow us for more tips on building your own homestead and gaining your independence. Looks like we're going to do a video on resetting the chain. That came totally off. Yes, this is not my first time, but I haven't done it a whole lot, so it may take a minute to do. But for the most part, it's setting it back. And yeah, you can't comment about me working on with the power there. It is definitely something that has to be disconnected. This is, for the most part, just a matter of setting it back in its track. Idea, go ahead and if time permitted, it would be a good idea to go ahead and get this all cleaned out, but I am working on a bit of a time schedule, so I get the excess off. Set it back in. Just have to make sure it's on its track. See, that is still too loose. We gotta keep going. Should be tight enough that none of these teeth, if you pull on them, they should not be able to come out completely. You want to have a little give. That is just there. Pull on one, it's just coming right to the edge. And that actually is about the loosest it should be. Test. Oh, nope, that is not set right. Let's see with that coming out. And I'm sure right now someone is ready to comment that I missed a step in this.